So it is Sunday the 8th of October and we're having a look through eBay to see which cameras I would consider worth looking at and perhaps making a bid on. There are of course lots of cameras on eBay and a lot of them are rubbish, and hopefully perhaps I can show you some insights into what I would consider good value for money and what I consider a good camera. Anyway, let's have a glance through at tonight's little daffy of cameras that are up for sale. Always popular on a Sunday night, and let's have a look and see what sort of pricing they're bidding for and which ones I think are the ones to go for. Personally, when I'm looking at the camera market, I'm particularly looking at large format, but I still glance through the 35mm film cameras, including the Plastic Fantastic cameras and some of the higher range cameras, plus the more point and shoot type cameras. So a bit of a mix. A lot of them are very much overpriced, e.g. the sort of Pentax K1000s and the like. The Canon A1s occasionally are very expensive, but we'll have a look through anyway and see what's going. Okay, so I use this program called pickclick.uk. Allows you to display the eBay results in a very sort of condensed format so that you don't get the clutter of eBay getting in the way. I'm looking at buy now in the UK, so I'm going to change that to all listings because I'm also looking at ending soon listings. So my criteria for this search is film cameras, all listings in the UK under the category of film cameras and sorted by ending soonest. I will tend to skip through the cameras which I think are a blatant rip-off, like the Olympus Mu 2, zoom or non-zoom. The prices are just ridiculous and I don't really know what you're paying for with those. You're probably better off getting a Praktica Sport SP301 at around £5 as opposed to some Olympus Mu at £135. Anyway, moving on. The Minolta SRTs are always very good beginner cameras, or even advanced cameras for that matter. They are semi-mechanical. They work at a good range of shutter speeds and go for really cheap money. So that one's definitely worth a look. So just a quick overview of what I would look for. When I'm looking at the camera here, I'm looking at the foam insert just above the mirror to see if that's in good condition. Looking at the mirror condition, if it's displayed. I'm looking at the overall top plate condition. I can see, it's pretty grubby. Looks like it's been reasonably well used. A little bit of rust coming through on the top there. The back doesn't look too bad. Bottom, I'm looking at the battery cover to see if there's any green mess coming out of that, which is an indication that the battery's been left in there and it's leaked. I'm looking at the shutter to see that that's in reasonable condition, and of course the foam light seals to make sure that they're in good condition. These look like they probably need replacing. There's a bit of corrosion around the back door, and yeah, £20, that's probably the going rate for that sort of camera in that condition. As I say, with a bit of cleaning up, that could be quite a nice camera, a cheap 35mm SLR. So I'm looking at these cameras at approximately 10 o'clock in the morning. Most of the cameras get sold around 5 p.m. to about 9 p.m. on Sunday, so I'm a bit ahead of the curve here. But even so, even at this time, there are quite a few cameras that are coming up to their sell-by between sort of 6 minutes and 30-40 minutes time. So it's worth having a glance on a Sunday morning to see what sort of cameras are going. Zorky 4 there, good cameras, good beginner cameras, rangefinder, Russian, worth the sort of £20 to £40 range. Not something I'd be looking at, I've already got a few of those. The Canon EOSs, as I've mentioned in previous videos, are very plasticky, tend to get sticky, but you can find some good bargains, especially if they come with a half decent lens. The Nikon Fs are really well sought after. That one has got some brassing, which some would consider an attribute to the camera, and it looks like, it's obviously a professional camera. It looks like it's been used as a professional camera. So one of the things to look for with professional range of any brand is the fact that basically a professional has used it, and that's why they bought it in the first place. So the shutter count will be high. It's probably been regularly serviced because it's a tool that they've used all the time, but it will be well used. This is £299, starting at £200. At really good condition, I'd say that's about the going money. In this condition, probably not, but besides the fact it's a nice camera. The Pentacon 6 is a nice cameras, very solid and quite reliable if you can find one. £360 is over the top for that. Let's carry on and see what else we've got going here. So when I'm looking, I generally look for perhaps not a non-dealer or even a charity shop sometimes, but specifically non-dealers, people who are just clearing out their old belongings or their grandfather's old belongings and just getting rid of stuff. And generally you can find that out. Look at the seller, look at the other stuff they're selling. Generally speaking, if they're a private seller, they may have 1 or 2 cameras, but that's about it. They tend to go for the better pricing, but obviously have been probably stuck in a shed or a garage or in a drawer somewhere, possibly not in the best condition. The dealers tend to know exactly how much the camera is going to be worth, and they'll obviously put a reserve on it at that price. Let's say the EOSs go for cheap money, good starter camera, worth considering if you just want the camera to start. Check for the things to check on these is the leatherette or whatever that is called these days on those EOS cameras. At the rear of the camera, they can get a bit sticky, and obviously they're pretty electronic. They're more of a recent camera. This one actually doesn't look too bad, and because it's a recent camera, you get things like DX coding, and the light seals are generally fine. So not too bad at all. This one's got the box with it. Don't know why they've wasted quite so many pictures just taking a picture of the box, but yeah, it looks very clean inside. The camera condition looks pretty good, and it's going for 26 quid. So it says it's in good condition. The rubber on the body has begun to oxidize and has a sticky film. Okay, so here we go. This is what I'm talking about. This has got a sticky film. Now that sticky film can be cleaned with various cleaners. Some people use isopropyl alcohol. Some people use other substances to clean the stickiness off, and it is more than feasible to do that. It takes a bit of time and effort, but if you're getting a camera for sort of £30 and you spend an hour cleaning it up, you've got a great camera for that sort of money. So worth considering. This one doesn't come with a lens, so £30 is probably about the right money for it. So here's an example of a nice sort of beginner's camera. £55 or best offer. It's got an hour to go. It's a Fujica STX-1N camera. And if we have a look at the details on that, you can see that, okay, it goes up to 7/100ths of a second, which is more than adequate for most photography. The rear of the camera looks to be okay, and the light seals look to be okay. It's a more recent film SLR camera. It's got another thing to look for is the fact that if a camera's got a filter on the front of it, it quite often protects the actual front of the lens. So generally speaking, that's a good thing. We're looking at a 1.9 50mm lens, and it comes with a case as well, which is always a bit of a bonus. £55, that's about the right money. I would say possibly that sort of camera will probably go a little bit cheaper than that, so that's probably right up there. If you're looking for something a bit more unusual, you can tell by the bids whether or not it's an interesting camera or not. So here we've got a Yashica half-frame camera. Now this one looks a little bit unusual. It's got the selenium cells round the lens. The lens looks half decent, and you can see the very small area for the frame for the film, and that's why it's called a half frame. So it's only really half a 35mm shot. So you're getting 72 images out of a 36 roll on this camera, which is great if you like taking a lot of photos. And you can do all sorts of things with it. You know, you can take sort of dual shots where you've got 2 different angles of the same shot. Very artistic things you can do with these sort of cameras. This is quite an old camera, and it looks to be okay. I'm imagining that the light cells are probably gone, and therefore would have to be manually metered. Let's shoot down and have a look at what it says. Hardly used, in excellent condition, as they all say. 32mm 1.7, so it's a good lens on that. It's got a copal shutter with selenium light meter. Indeed, no need for batteries. Matched needle system in viewfinder, manual and auto settings. So that is actually a nice half-frame camera, and at the moment it's bidding at £20. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit unusual and more of a collectible thing, I'd definitely look at this camera. It's a nice, clean condition camera, metal body, and a good find actually. Yeah, definitely worth considering that one. Okay, moving on. I'm going to skip through the ones that particularly wouldn't interest me, but I don't think would interest a lot of people. If you're looking at plastic fantastic type cameras, there are lots of them around, and they're worth considering. The zooms don't go, ironically, for as much money as the fixed lens cameras, but if you just want a point and shoot, put a film in and shoot, and modern with good condition, and the light seals will be good, and as long as all the electrics work, they're great bargains. You can pick these up for £10-15, so well worth a look at all the way through these. I mean, you've got a Yashica ZoomMate 70, which is a nice enough camera, £8 at the moment, no bids, £5 on this one, etc, etc. Anyway, we'll move on. The Canon T70s are nice enough camera. I would suggest, if you're going to push the boat out on something like a T70, not as popular as the T90, if you can find a good T90 Canon, I would definitely perhaps look at that one. Okay, there's the Olympus Trip. You'll find an Olympus Trip on every single page on eBay. Everyone's always selling Olympus Trips. They go from anything from £20 to over £100. Not quite sure why there's such a wide disparity, but that's what it is. For example, if we have a look at this Olympus Trip, you can see it's pretty grubby, and looks like it's been stuffed in a drawer somewhere. Well, just left, and someone's now deciding to sell it. It's an okay camera, and with a bit of cleaning up, would actually be quite a nice little point and shoot. It's got 5 bids on it. It's currently it's £21. It's probably worth a punt if you're into the Olympus Trip market. The Pentax Spotmatic. Now, the Pentax Spotmatic is a very underrated camera, and it's pretty much a fully manual camera, so a great starter camera for someone learning photography. This one looks like it's got a filter on it, so hopefully the lens is a bit protected. It's an f2 55mm lens, but metal construction rather than the plastic fantastic lenses. The body on these Pentaxes are built like bricks. If you look at the top plate, it's very basic. It's basically shutter speed, and you've got the flash mount, and that's about a lot. These cameras do keep going forever if you can find a decent one. Mostly the light seals will need replacing, not always, but this one looks like it probably does. It's at £50. I'd say there's no bids on it, probably because it's somewhat overpriced. Those Pentax Spotmatics go for quite ridiculous cheap prices. Here's another half-frame camera. Always good to get these sort of cameras. 7 bids on this, 36 quid at the moment. I do like half-frame cameras, I've got to say. Makes your film last a lot longer, and the quality is really good because it's on film, and although it's half-frame, you get 72 shots, which is perfect. This one is particularly grubby. It's got selenium light cell. I'm not really keen on the Canon Demi. It's a half-frame camera, but as you can see, it's pretty rough. Would need a fair bit of work to get that into working order, if at all. I would steer well clear of a camera like this, even though the bidding's going quite bananas on it, and will probably go a lot higher shortly. 36 quid is already too much for what I would say is worth the money. So yes, I would definitely skip that sort of camera. The Minoltas, the Dynax range, they're good. They're a bit plasticky, but for a beginner camera, they go for very cheap money. If you're looking for a starter camera, they're not bad, if long assuming that all the electrics are working, of course. Personally, if I was looking for a starter camera and I wanted something very basic, I would go for the Praktikas. Praktika, LTL, MTL. These cameras are built like bricks. They're very solid, very reliable, very easy to use. This one here has got 1.8 50mm lens. You know, what's to go wrong sort of thing. There's the battery compartment, looks clean enough. The top plate looks reasonably clean. It's got thousandths of a second shutter speed and probably needs some light seal work, but generally speaking, it's a nice little camera. I would say definitely, I don't know, would probably go for sort of £20–25 for a great camera with a lens. Definitely worth a punt on that. I'm not, because I've got too many Praktikas, but it's an interesting camera. And then we go to the ridiculously priced cameras like this camera here, which I wouldn't even consider. It's too much to pay for a camera. We've got this Pentax SP1000, and I'm not sure if they realise what they're selling, but it's £42, and that's just for a case, which is ridiculous, hence the reason there's no bids on it. There's the overpriced Canon AE1s, in my opinion, although a lot of people like them. It's already at £85 and will go a lot higher. So, in my opinion, steer clear of them. There's another one there at £31. So, you know, that's £31. This one's already at £85. So let's have a look at this and see what's wrong with it, because it's got buy it now price at £61. It says requires compatible lens brought second-hand in working condition when last used. That's always very ominous. Have been professionally tested when purchased last year. Normal wear and tear. Light meter not working. So basically, it's okay, but the light meter's stopped and it's basically got an old beaten up lens on there, and it's only selling the body anyway, so the lens doesn't come with it, and they want £61. Hence the reason there's no bids on it. Okay, so moving on. So we've got an Olympus OM10 here. Again, a good starter camera, quite small, sort of very popular in the day. This one is going at the moment £20, and looking at the condition, it doesn't look too bad. They're very compact. This one's got two lenses with it, and that's a 1.8 lens and a telephoto lens, which is 4.5, 80–200, and there's the 1.8. Overall condition doesn't look too bad. We haven't got anything with the back open. With these OM10s, you can get a control that basically plugs in here, which allows you to adjust the shutter speed, so the aperture, I mean. So you've got both shutter speed and aperture control on these cameras if you want them. A lot of the cameras for sale will have that already in there, which are the only ones that I consider. So let's have a look what else we've got down here. Skipping through all the ones that I think are just, you know, standard. There's a nice little Nikon TW20AF. They're nice little cameras, point and shoot if it works. It's going 99p at the moment. Olympus Stylus Epic, no thank you, overpriced for what it is, piece of plastic. And the Praktika, again, MTL3 and a Zenith E. So again, that'll go for cheap money. And if you're looking for a starter camera and you want an SLR, the Praktika is a great camera, and so is the Zenith, and both very solid, both pretty reliable if you can find a decent one. Don't go for much money. So let's move on, see what else we've got. If you're looking for a plastic fantastic, these Canon Sure Shots were always popular in the day. This one at the moment is around £10, but it says point shoot camera for parts not working. Yeah, okay, so there we go. There's a good example of where somebody has just left the batteries in for years, they've leaked, and for the price of the camera, written off the camera. £10, not worth anything, to be honest. Okay, here's a little hidden gem for starters. It's the Canon TLB, pretty much manual camera, built in the day when cameras were built really solidly. This one looks pretty clean. Okay, so it's only got a 500th of a second top end speed, but who cares, that's more than enough. It's got a nice little 1.8 Canon FD lens on there. It's a nice looks like a nice camera. It's been film tested, so someone's actually been testing it. The lens looks to be in good condition. The light seals, definitely on the way out, but you know, that's a job to be done at some point. The body, yeah, it's okay, not too bad. Can't see inside the battery compartment, which is just on the left hand side there, but assuming that that is okay and the camera's working, I would say £50 is, unfortunately for these cameras, the top end, but for a starter camera you could get this probably for pretty much the same sort of money and get it and be shooting with it the same, 10 minutes after you've received it. Nice little camera. I've already got one or two of those, but they are well worth the money. So then we come to the Nikomat, and that's there's lots of different spellings of Nikomat, but this is the FTN. £100, okay, starting bid. That's too much as a starting bid. Doesn't really care what the condition is. It's a fantastic camera, manual, again built like a brick. Just a nice solid manual camera. Looks like the light seals aren't too bad, possibly on the way out, but a great camera, solid, reliable, if it works. The only downside to this one is the fact that it is starting bid at £100, which is too much. Hence the reason I would suggest there's no bids on it at the moment. The Nikon FE, that was like a later version when they moved from the FM and other sort of cameras. This is a nice black-bodied, black Nikon. Nice camera, 1.8 lens, all fully working. It says had this camera for 5 years. Got new light seals during lockdown. LR44 batteries, so that's pretty easy enough to replace. And apart from that, a little bit of dust, no fungus. So obviously someone's got an attachment to this camera, hence the reason that the condition is probably quite good actually. And as you can see, it's a manual and automatic camera. It is built very well. The battery compartment looks good. I wouldn't say the light seals have been done particularly well, bit of a homemade job, but presumably are working okay. A nice little standard 1.8 lens on there, and it looks okay, looks good. £113, probably go for a bit more than that. Possibly, in my opinion, probably not worth all that much more than that, but again, it's a camera that you probably need to keep an eye on just to see what it does eventually go for. Anyway, moving on, the Praktikas, yeah, have a look at them, look at the condition. If you want a cheap camera, go for something like a Praktika. They are nice, reliable, solid cameras. I'm skipping through some of these. Okay, another half-frame camera. I don't want to sort of dwell too much on half-frame cameras, but they are good fun. This is, this time, the Olympus Pen D. It's a 35mm 1.9 Shuko lens. A nice camera. Doesn't really say too much about it, whether the light is working with a selenium cell. The light meter may not be working. It looks to be in pretty good condition actually. We haven't got the back film door open, so we can't really see the condition there, but yeah, not bad. It's semi-manual camera, so you can adjust both shutter speed and the aperture, so it's a good camera in that respect. And it doesn't say too much about it. Condition is used, that's about as accurate as it gets. I would say £65, worth having a look at, both as a collection camera but also as a great usable half-frame camera. Very interesting camera that. Let me wade through some of the plastic fantastics, any one of which would be great for just going out and shooting a roll of film. Skip through the Nikon 28 Ti. That's a point and shoot, but look at the price, £800. Very sought after, but you've got to have deep pockets for those sort of cameras. Let's have a look, see what else we've got down here. So Hasselblads and stuff. I'm going to skip the medium format on this video and just keep it potentially to the 35mm. So the Ricoh 500Gs. These are quite well sought after. There was a guy on YouTube who I follow who does lots of camera and film reviews, and He's recently reviewed the 500G. I've got a couple of them, not in great condition. This one looks to be pretty good. It's a semi-manual stroke automatic point and shoot camera. As you can see, you've got the shutter speed and the aperture. It's got a 2.8 lens. The back looks fairly clean, non-DX coded, so you can easily put in any film. The Reconon lenses are purported to be pretty good. This one looks in pretty good condition, £23 at the moment, and it's got 6 hours to go on it. But I'd suggest as a good point and shoot, if you could get that for around the sort of £35–40 mark, it will be a good camera to have. The Pentax P50, well, what can we say? Pentax P30, P50, all great cameras and go for very little money for what they are. This one has got a 35–200 zoom lens, and you can see from the condition of it, okay, it's a bit plasticky. It's one of the later Pentax SLRs that were produced. A great little camera. It's got 50mm and the zoom lens, and it's got a flash as well. It's got the 1.7 Pentax lens. Nice, very nice in actual fact. It's got 3 bids on it. Obviously it won't go for £6, but it will probably go for, half decent money, but still well affordable for a learner. It's got a great little light meter, very reliable, and is a good camera. And speaking of the Pentaxes, here's the P30T. I have one of these and used it for a long time. It's a great camera, again quite late in the evolution of SLR cameras. Because of that, is extremely reliable, has automatic and manual modes. Great little meter in there. This one looks particularly clean. It looks like it's got a filter on it, and it's a 1.7 lens, which is a nice Pentax lens. It looks to be in good condition, and the light seals look to be okay, as you'd expect for a later SLR camera. Again, not a bad camera. This one is £25, good condition, and I would definitely, if I was looking for a starter camera, be putting a bid in on this baby. It is a lovely camera and will serve you very, very well. Okay, so here we have the Canon T90. This is one of the Canons that I think are absolutely brilliant. I've actually got one of these, and I bought it originally when they first came out, some, whatever it was, 30+ years ago. Still got it, still works fantastically. These cameras are, I would consider, professional cameras. They are built like bricks. They have a fair bit of electronics because they were the foray into the digital era for Canon, and just before they went digital, this was the last one of the last cameras that they produced. They are very, very good cameras if you can get one that works and doesn't have an error. Cameras are ultra heavy, but they are solid and do everything that a modern camera does, plus a lot more. Built-in motor wind, different shooting modes. It's a great camera. Even these cases go for sort of like 20 quid. So I don't know how much this will go for, but for a working one, I would look to pay anything up to about £100 for that sort of camera. So here's a bit of a red herring. This is the Canon Date E rangefinder camera, and this one is a little bit of a collectible. It's got a 2.8 lens. It's Canon. Quite an unusual camera if you Google the details on it. This one says parts not working. Having said that, it looks in pretty good condition, and obviously comes with a aftermarket case. Physically, can't see anything too wrong with it. It does need two 1.3 volt mercury batteries, which are pretty hard to find, but you could use other batteries and then compensate by adjusting the film speed or adjusting the film speed via a light meter, and using the light meter and then adjusting if you're developing yourself with the development side. But you can still find the 1.3 mercury type batteries or compatibles if you really want to get something like this. It says it's treated as parts not working. It's one of those cameras that you've got to decide whether you want to take a punt on it or not. Price is £45. worth having a look at if you're into collecting cameras. Again, point shoots, Minoltas. I personally wouldn't go for the Dianas. I mean, 50 quid for what is basically a plastic lens and a piece of plastic camera. I don't personally see the attraction to those sort of things, but there you go. A lot of people like them. I wouldn't even bother to even look at something like that, compared to say a Zorki 4, which would go for cheaper money. Built like a tank, metal, great little lens, great little camera, reliable. I can't really see why people go for one rather than the other, but everyone's their own. Okay, moving on. Just as a side note, you want to see something ridiculous, a Nikon F100. Nice cameras, I have one. They are sort of semi-professional Nikon. Great SLRs, to be fair, but £1,500. Obviously, don't care if it comes brand new with boxes and everything else. It's £1,500. I'll be very surprised if anybody's foolish enough to buy that sort of camera. That is a huge amount of money for what is a semi-pro camera, when you could easily buy a Nikon F5 camera for that sort of money. Anyway, that's my opinion, and I will be sticking to it. So we've got a 120 Ecomatic camera crept in here, and this is a nice camera, twin lens reflex, great camera for street photography. It's got 7 bits on it, and it's currently at £26 with 9 hours to go. That will go for more money than the £26. It's already got 7 bits on it, but for a twin lens reflex, you could probably pay anything between £50 and £100, depending on the condition. But for a twin lens reflex, it's cheaper than the Yashica 124s, etc., and is a nice camera worth considering. Here's another half-frame camera. Seen quite a few this week. This is the Olympix Pen D2. Not quite so manual as the other Olympus pens, but it's got a nice 1.9 lens, which is a great lens. Olympus glass is always quite good. It's nice looking. Looks like it's had some sort of sticker on the back which could be cleaned up, and the light meter seems to work. It looks, generally speaking, to be okay. Light seals look like they probably need replacing. It says it's generally good condition, I hate that expression, but does have a dent on the top plate. Lens is clean, shutter works at all speeds, and meter works, but it's not been checked for accuracy, which means it probably doesn't work. It says there's a dent on the front, which you can see where the film plane marker is. That's a little bit suspicious, probably hence the reason why it's only £27 at the moment. Again, it's probably a collector's camera, but it is a nice little camera if you want to take a bit of a gamble. Yashica FXDs, yeah, great cameras. If you find one that's working and in good condition, this one doesn't look too bad. £40, probably won't go for much more money than that. They're not particularly well sought after for some reason. There's another pen. This one is the pen EE2, which I also have, and if we look at the details of that, for some reason it's starting at a penny, and it says it's sold parts. The selenium light meter, which obviously they do go, it's not functional. It shows sign of water damage behind the lens surround. Shutter's firing, so that's probably why it's going cheap. But yeah, perhaps there is some water damage, and that's something to be investigated. Or maybe if you're quite practical at taking things apart, it's probably worth a punt on that. I personally like the Nikon F range, the 301, 401, 501, 601, 801. I personally wouldn't look at the 801. They started to move into a bit of a plastic fantastic phase with the 601 and the 801. I don't particularly like the more later Nikon F series. it'd probably go for quite cheap money. That's probably too much actually for that. I wouldn't bid on it, not at any price, I don't think, because I don't like the fact that it's almost completely plastic for the money. Having said that, some people like that, and it'll probably clean up quite well, but not my cup of tea. There's an F100 at better money at the moment. It's obviously got 5 bids on it. That will go quite a lot, £77. If you're looking for semi-pro, great all-round camera, the Nikon F100. What a beautiful camera. Probably worth one keeping an eye on that. Ignore the fact that it's got a power winder. Who wants a power winder on a film camera? I mean, 36 exposures is enough price at the moment without having to get through them even quicker. So the actual camera alone is well worth 77. I've seen them go for upwards of £200 for, depending on the condition. This one comes box, so it's probably quite good and worth a punt. Right, okay, moving on. Let's move on quite swiftly now. And there's a Nikon F3, £500. Again, professional camera, and the F4. F4 is £114 at the moment. It'll go for a lot more than that, and it's a professional Nikon. It's got 16 bits on it, and the F3's got 7 bits on it. Those both will go for very good money. Not worth considering unless you're seriously into film photography, or you've got somebody who's quite wealthy in the family who's willing to pay a reasonable amount of money for a professional SLR camera, but be warned, they are professional, so they're going to have a high shutter count and high usage and probably need a good, very good service. The Canon A1s, they generally go for quite good money actually, and I would say they're good cameras. If you can find one that's working well and in good condition. But this one's got the 1.8 lens and looks to be pretty good condition, as you can see, quite well sought after in the day. And this is cosmetic camera's getting worse, suffering from light leaks. Okay, so light seals need replacing. Okay, so it puts people off a bit talking about light seals needing replacing, but let's face it, most cameras of this era do need the light seals replacing, and this one looks like it could clean up quite well. It's not a bad camera for £56, but obviously it's got nearly 9 hours to go and it's already at 23 bids. That will go for good money. If you're after something that's a sort of Canon semi-pro sort of camera, that would be a good one to go for. Okay, so still continuing now to look at some of these cameras that are worth looking at. Definitely anything that's a Pentax P3, P5, definitely worth a look at. They're great cameras, really good, reliable and robust. I'm skipping through a lot of them because they're always coming up. They're pretty much 10 a penny, and up to you really. If you want a plastic, fantastic point and shoot, then go for them. They're always handy to have and handy to carry around in your bag, and just bring it out when you want to shoot something. There are always those cameras that are a bit of a gamble, but if they're cheap enough, perhaps worth the gamble. Here's one, for example, a Praktica MTL3, which on the face of it looks to be quite a good camera, quite clean. The pictures are a bit blurry, which is always worrying. 1.8 Pentacon 50mm lens, and it says it's untested, but it looks pretty clean. Now, this is perhaps an example of somebody who is not a camera dealer, so they don't really know what they're looking at. In this case, it's just a bunch of sort of antique type things. So this is going at $9.99 at the moment. So it comes with a case. I mean, the case alone is probably worth a tenner. So it's one of those cameras that's worth a punt, because if you got it for 15 quid, it could be a good camera and worth having. Speaking of punts, here's another example. It's a Canon SureShot 76. So it's a little zoom point and shoot plastic Canon, but it's a nice camera, nothing wrong with that. The light seals are fine, general condition is good, I would say. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. Top plate, it's got a zoom on it. Okay, not as good as a fixed lens, but for a nice little film camera with a case and in pretty good condition, I would say, it's £15. Maybe you're going to get that for £20. Now, the reason it's probably so cheap is because it's a charity shop, so it's a hospice charity shop. They don't particularly always price things at their maximum value. They price things to sell, and this is the case with this one, where it says a nice clean example, working but not tested with film, which is fine. And also, you're contributing to a charity shop. To be honest, the case is probably worth a few quid in itself. So again, it's not a little bad camera to take a punt on. I would definitely, if I hadn't already got quite a few of these type of cameras, I would definitely be looking at something like that. The same would go for this little Praktica Super Zoom camera. They're both nice little cameras. Okay, here's an interesting one. At first glance, it's a Chinon C5, which are very underrated cameras, and it's currently a bid at £4.99. Now, under normal conditions, most people wouldn't look at that, except for the fact that I've noticed that it's got a 1.4 Chinon lens on it. Now, the 1.4 lens is the most sought after on the Chinon lenses. It is a lovely lens. The camera looks to be in reasonable condition as well. And again, okay, there might be some cleanups, might need new light seals, but for the lens alone, it's probably worth £50 plus. And again, it's a hospice, so they may not be familiar with the 1.4 type lens being of a premium quality. So again, that one is definitely worth a punt, and it's kind of hidden. A lot of people will sort of bypass it. It's got 21 watches on there for a reason. And that's the other good thing about the PicClick software, is you can see how many people are watching and very quickly how many bids there are. Obviously, there's one bid. It's got nearly 6 hours to go, so that is probably going to go way more than I would be interested in paying for. Another quite interesting thing to do is to look at some cameras that have got film in them, undeveloped film. Here, for example, is an F301. Again, in my opinion, the perfect, or just about the perfect starter camera. Very cheap, very capable, and at the moment it's going for £15. Now, I can see from the pictures that it's got a film in there. I'm not sure how many exposures are on that film in terms of what's been taken. It's got the manuals and bits and pieces. Yes, it's a bit grubby, but it looks like it's mostly dust. It could mean that it does need a good cleanup. But the F301s, they go up to 0.02 of a second. They have a power winder, and generally speaking, they've been reasonably well looked after. Again, £15 is no money, and if you sort of slightly intrigued about cameras with existing film in them that haven't been developed, and you've got that intriguing mind that wants to see what's on the film, for 15-20 quid you'll end up with a pretty decent camera and also a bit of an investigation to the film. So again, perhaps potentially for the money, worth a punt. Okay, so here's the first Canonet I've come across, Canonet QL19, which means it's a 1.9 lens. It looks like it's the style of camera that goes between where they had the photoelectric cells round the lens to the camera that had just the center sensor. So it's sort of in between those. So it's got the old body but with the newer style lens. Again, this is a nice looking camera. The glass looks pretty good. If you're in the market for what is an extremely popular rangefinder camera, the Canonets always do well. I can see that there's already been 4 bids and it is currently at £5.50. It will go for a lot more than that, but having said that, that one might sneak in under the radar and you might be lucky. So again, worth a bid on a camera like that. Very fashionable, great solid metal cameras with great lenses, so worth a punt. Okay, so moving on from there. Yeah, so here's an example of the Canonet, but with the photoelectric cells around the lens, so it's a slightly older model than the one we were just looking at. Again, it looks to be in pretty good conditions. These ones were quite unusual insofar as they had the winder mechanism underneath the base of the camera, so the top of the camera was fairly minimal. I wouldn't personally bid on this one because I can see that it's been bashed on the lens hood there, which is always a bad sign. It always means that it's going to potentially be completely out of alignment and cause problems. So I wouldn't personally bid on a camera like that, but if you're into fixing up cameras, if you've got that one cheap enough, it might well be worth it. So what have we got here? Yashica 35J. Okay, they're nice little cameras, and always worth a look at because they are generally reasonably well looked after. They're metal bodied. They have a reasonable 2.8 lens, and this one looks quite clean. The top plate looks quite clean, but with a bit of corrosion. A manual camera, comes with a case, £27. I'm not sure basically if they're going to get the £27. It seems quite pricey to me. But if you can find a good clean example of those, well worth it. So here's a Canonet QL17, a much more modern Canonet, and again very sought after. This is the G3 model. Already I can see there's some little dent marks in the top corner there. The lens looks pretty battered, but it does have a filter on it which has protected the lens, I'm assuming. Again, the QL Canons are very popular, and they go for a lot of money. £91, 20 bids, way over my pay scale. I wouldn't be interested in paying that for a camera that has probably got quite a few problems to resolve. So that would be that one out of the window. The Canon T90, on the other hand, I would consider to be a beautiful camera if you can find a decent one. They don't go for too much money. It says excellent condition, hasn't been used for a while, so require new batteries, whatever that means. Does that mean it has got an error on it when you switch it on and you think, oh, it has got a problem? Front lens there looks to be a little bit beaten up. Not sure what's happened there. I'm assuming that lens would probably be no good, or they've just whacked on a lens to make it try and sell for a bit more money. Looks like it's been well used, to be fair. Probably not the camera I would bid on, but if it was a little bit better condition than that, I definitely would be bidding on that camera for sure. The Canon T90 is an excellent camera if you can get one that's working. Okay. Here's a nice camera, Fujica ST605, and it's got a 2.2 lens on it, which is a bit slow, but it is £25. So when we have a look at this, you can see that it's got a very slow, cheapy lens, which is a shame. It comes with a box. The top plate looks okay. These are sort of manual, older cameras, but built like tanks. Beginner camera, yes, with a perhaps a slightly better lens. £25. If it went for 30, it would probably be reasonable value. Not my cup of tea, that's for sure. But Fujicas are good, well-made cameras, as are the Canon SureShots, which you will find plenty of them for sale, and a great little point-and-shoot camera. The Canon AE1s, wouldn't go for the telephoto lens, to be honest, especially not a Tokina 70-120. That seems to be a totally impractical lens to put on a camera like that, especially for a starter, probably a 50 or a smaller zoom. It's already at 80 quid. Goodness knows what that would go for. I wouldn't bid for that whatsoever. Now we've got a Pentax here, which is... So here's a little Pentax, which surprisingly is hidden because they're just showing a picture of a case. So a lot of people might think for that money you're just getting the case, but when you actually look at the details, you can see that the camera's not too bad. It's only got a f2 lens, it's Pentax lens. It's a nice black-bodied camera. It's a nice starter camera, that's for sure. They're not huge. It all looks to be pretty clean, to be fair. And when we look at the details, it's mechanically working fast as it should. Shutter speeds are accurate. Internal light meter does not function. The lens may require a strip clean. Well, really sure what they mean. Vintage Honeypots is the seller. I've used them before. They normally know what they're doing. So if they say the lens may need a strip clean, there is possibly something wrong with the lens. But if you got that for 15, 20 quid, it's got a nice lens, nice little camera, it's worth going for, in my humble opinion. So moving on, there's the usual Olympus trip, which are cropping up everywhere these days, if you like that sort of thing. And the Olympus OM10. Now, the ones to look for on the OM10 are the ones that have the override control for both the aperture and the shutter speed. This one doesn't have that, so I don't collect Olympus stuff. I wouldn't be particularly interested in that camera, but I know a lot of people do like Olympus stuff. They're very nice cameras. There's the Rollei 35, you get a few of those cropping up. Again, unless you're an avid collector of those cameras, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. As you can see, it's already stated 395 kickoff. So here we go, the Canon QL equivalent with the Yashica was the Electro 35, and they had various models, of which this is the GT. These were electronic cameras, so you have to be slightly careful. They've got good lenses, 1.7. This is the black-bodied one, but you have to be careful because there is the legendary problem with the cocking shutter, and that's where you have to be careful that the camera that you're getting has that fix applied to it. Now, it seems like this one has a replacement POD, the pad of death, which is that clonk you hear when you wind the film on. The clonk is actually what you want to hear, and it's had new seals, light seals, and the optics cleaned. Electronics are functioning well in low light and bright conditions. So, to be honest with you, it sounds like a nice little camera. Can't see too many blemishes or any dents on the lens. It's £45, 9 bids, 6 hours to go. Probably gonna go for 60 plus, something like that. I've already got some Yashica Electros, so I won't be going for it, but for a great rangefinder, point and shooty type camera, that is a good camera. I'll definitely be considering that. Okay, the Nikomat FT. What a lovely camera. That is a nice camera. No lens, unfortunately. £21.60. It's already got a bid on it, 6 hours to go. It's the black-bodied one, which is quite well sought after, and it is in great condition. Shutter speed is around the lens mount on these, and they are built like a proverbial tank. This one looks to be in very good condition, full working condition, no scuffs, dents or anything. Current bid's £21.60. For a beginner camera, for a manual camera, this is definitely worth a go. It's a great looking camera in great condition. And here are a collection of Rollei 35s, 295, 475, 425. 995. Why are people buying? Collectors, I guess, who have got more money than sense. These cameras are cramming a lot of mechanical technology into a tiny little box, and half the time they just don't work. Don't waste your money, especially if you're starting photography. Get something that is actually robust, reliable, and going to work straight from the get-go. Looking for a starter camera? Go no further, another Chinon. This one is the CG5, and lovely little camera. It is £35 at the moment, no bids. As it says, it's got some slight wear from the finger resting position. Sounds a bit dubious, but it also means that the camera's had some high mileage, but it says it's in full working condition. A 1.9, nice lens, and pretty much a good beginner's reliable camera. Has a manual and automatic mode on it, and just takes standard batteries, so is well worth having a look at if you're looking for a starter camera. There's another F100. Now these are really nice cameras if you can get one that isn't sticky and is as well being looked after. 126 is no money for a camera that is in really good condition. So here's an example of the Olympus OM10 I was talking about, where the OM10 has this option for the shutter speed manual addition on the right hand side here, which makes the camera a fully manual aperture and shutter mode on an OM10, which was not shutter controlled in its base model. That's probably why it's running at £88, although that's the starting bid, no bid, so that's what the minimum price is. So again, I wouldn't go for that. It's too expensive at that level. Strangely, there's another OM10, quite a few OM10s this week, and it has the manual control in it. It is starting bid £25. That's got 18 hours to go, so it doesn't finish till early Monday morning. That's quite a good one to bid on, because not many people, of course if they've got auto bidders, then they will probably bid on it, but if they're manually bidding, it's unlikely that they're going to be getting up early to bid on this camera. It's got 3570 zoom f4, which isn't bad. The back of the camera looks to be okay, so nothing really wrong with that camera. If anyone's interested and they're still looking at this video, which would be a miracle, but if they are, I use an auto bidder for all my eBay purchases, and it's very, very good. It's only £10 a year to license it, and probably wins 8 out of 10 times, so well worth having a look at. If anybody's interested, let me know and I'll do a video. So again, those looking for a manual focus start-up camera that's got great features like 2000 second shutter, it's got power winder built into the camera, just takes AAA batteries. The F301 is one of the ones to go for. When you look at the spec of this one, it's a lovely clean camera. It's got a 36-72 zoom lens with it, f3.5, which is quite good, and it's Nikon. And looking at the condition, it is pretty good, so nothing wrong with that. And it's got a filter on it to protect the lens, and it says that there's been tried the camera as much as I can without putting film through it, and everything appears to be working satisfactorily. So, well, whatever that will mean, but it does have a skylight filter, which I'm assuming has helped to protect the lens. It looks pretty clean, and as I say, they are good cameras, very, very good cameras, very underrated. Manual focus, that's one thing to remember, but very reliable if you can get a good one, and at that price, that's a great starter camera. Here's another Chinon, this time the C4. Again, they're nice, a bit like the F301. They're nice cameras. Now, why am I interested in that? Well, I can tell you, because it's got an f1.4 Chinon lens. Again, they're worth their weight in gold, and most people would skip past it, but if you're observant, you can see it's got a super fast lens on it, and it's worth bidding just for the lens alone. So that's worth putting a bid on. It's worth bearing in mind that as you look at cameras, you're going to get those people that know exactly what the camera's worth, and you're going to get those people that just basically want to shift them. So, try and distinguish between the dealers out there and the private sellers, and you can always strike up a deal and, try and make a deal with the person who's selling it. Obviously, you won't be able to do a deal when it's coming up to an hour before the Sunday evening bout, because they're in no mad panic to sell the camera because they want to see what it will get at auction. But if you were to start looking for cameras on a sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's early enough for people to sort of think, I might do a deal with them for that. Or if you want to look at the sort of make an offer, things that are up for sale or the newly listed, and just get a listing of those just to see which ones are coming in that are of a reasonable price. If you like what you're seeing, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel, where I do a weekly review of the film cameras that are coming up for sale on eBay every week. Thank you. See you next week.